Yes, to make, let's say if you're going for EV, it's going to be like 500 volts or 260 volts, or you know how it works, right? So in order to monitor this charging and discharging cycles, you will be having a battery management system. Okay. So a battery management system, put short, is going to be a circuit. It's going to be a monitoring circuit, monitoring and sometimes control circuit. Okay, this is going to monitor the cycle, the charging and discharging, that is the operation of the battery, and it may also employ certain cell balancing techniques to prevent overcharging, or discharging, or probably also the temperature of the battery. Okay, the safety parameters also it will monitor, and it will also take it might also take correct preventive measures as to prevent the battery from getting damaged when more than the sufficient current, or more than more than sufficient current, or power is being trying to drawn, right? So if you see, I mean, some examples of a battery management circuit. So if you see the connections, okay, it will have a negative temperature coefficient. RTD will be connected to monitor the temperature of the battery, and you'll have a module. I mean, the cells, individual cells will be monitored. Okay, and this is for 14.8 volt. Okay, if you need more, probably you have to go for a separate module. Then what exactly this battery management system requires? Okay, what is the block diagram of a battery management system? Yes. So if you see, it's going to be basically going to be it's going to be an embedded, mostly an embedded system. It's going to be embedded system, okay, which where parameters like current, voltage, temperature will be acquired, and that will be done primarily by using a data acquisition module. Okay, that is going to be a ADC or DAC of your choice, or a separate module could be employed. Okay, in case of automotive, some probably you need to have an integrated data acquisition. Okay, as a part of battery management module itself, which should come, or sometimes it will have intelligent batteries will come along internally. It will have these data acquisition systems. It totally depends on what type of module you're working. Okay, so it will acquire these parameters, and depending on the data acquired, this data will be put to different modules, that is safety production, depending on the data whether it needs to employ a safety, or it needs to decide what it has to do. Okay, so let's say you want to know, depending on the amount of charge available, okay, probably it needs to prevent the battery from discharging. So those type of information, or those type of decisions, if it needs to be made, okay, it will be taking place in state determination, and it will take place with the battery management itself. Okay, so it will be having a processor, okay, which will depending on the current, voltage, and temperature, it will undo, right? So yeah, then possibly we need to view the data. Okay, we need to observe what type of information is being drawn from the battery. Okay, so probably you need to visualize the data, or we need to visualize the processed data, or sometimes you need to push this data so somewhere else for further insights, or for preventive maintenance, so on and so forth, right? So that if you want to do, okay, you need to have a user interface. Okay, so battery management software could be there, or if you, in case of your electrical vehicle, that needs to come in the touch panel, okay, of your electrical vehicle itself, probably to check whether your battery is working properly or it has any problems. So a myriad of problems could rise up, so this needs to be monitored, right? So depending on the state at which it is there, okay, you need to employ some electrical control, possibly to employ charging and discharging of the battery, or over current production, under current production. So those things, safety production should be employed. So those things all will come into picture. And of course, sometimes it needs to be, these data all needs to be transferred to a separate module. Okay, if you take a car, it's going to have multiple processors in it, and it's going to have a centralized CPU. So all this data collected by battery management module should be connected, communicated to main module. So some sort of internal communication will take place. So considering all these things, only your battery management system will be available. So already I've explained why BMS, but as a um, points, okay, you can say, okay, it's basically to monitor and balance each cell, okay, and it's going to actively check if individual battery is going to consume, depending on the topologies. There are a lot of topologies available, of course. Okay, so depending on the topologies, it's going to be employed for monitoring and balancing of each self of its the state of the charge, right? So when we do this actively, okay, we monitor and balance, and depending on it, okay, we try to disconnect the battery from the load or connect the battery to the load for charging or discharging. So it's going to extend the battery life ultimately, right? So when the battery life is extended, okay, your capacity is also automatically going to increase. I mean, when we say capacity, it's going to be overall capacity during the overall period. So if let's say a battery capacity, always it's going to, you have to see it's lithium ion battery, and it's going to be chemical reaction based, charging discharging is going to take place. And due to the continuous usage in the internal, lithium ion will get unusable. And during the new, during the first few usages, if you see, it's going to have a separate capacity. Let's say it's going to be 1000 mAh. Then slowly, if the state of health, as we call it, okay, it's going to continuously degrade, right? So initially your state of the health, okay, will be, let's say it's going to be 100%. Then over a period of time, it's going to be that overall capacity is going to be 60% of the initial. For example, 10,000 mAh is going to become 6,000 mAh. Okay, or at a 10 at a 10 ah is going to become 6 ah, and slowly it's going to erode, and it's going to come back to very low. Okay, so that it will not be giving you as much as it gave you at the beginning, right? And of course, when safety is considered, it's going to prevent as much as explosion as possible, right? So it's going to prevent as much as possible. It's going to prevent the explosion and fire prevention by preventing it from, over discharging, as we call it. So what are the things your battery management system should have? Okay, it's going to do monitoring, it's going to do computation, communication. Okay, that's what we are talking about. And of course, protection system. Then the on and off of the disconnection and the connection to a load circuit. Load circuit will be typically a motor in case of electrical vehicle, or it's going to be the actual load. Okay, if you're going to do it for inverter. And if you're going to work for EV, it's going to be energy recovery. It's going to be mostly focused on energy recovery. So yeah, I think I heard someone unmute. Do you have any questions?
Sir, can we have questions at the end of the session?
Yeah, okay, sure, ma'am.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Right. So these are the the parameters which your battery management system will look like. Okay, primarily it will look for voltage, current, temperature, because your data acquisition system will acquire this data, okay, of voltage, current, and temperature actively. And also, if you see, coolant flow can also be monitored and controlled, of course. Okay, if you, let's say if the battery is overheating, it needs to supply more coolant to it towards that location. But if you see the state of the charge and state of the health, okay, state of charge and are also called as depth of discharge. Okay, both of them are same. Okay, this will be derived of nature. So this will be derived by using acquiring the data from voltage, current, and temperature. Okay, it will not be automatically caught. So state of charge is the total charge possessed by the battery. So which it can employ for doing various activities depending on what application you're going to use the battery. Okay, the total usable voltage, okay, total usable power in it. So it's going to be measured in terms of percentage. That is the ultimate aim is to convert into percentage. So the measurement of state of the charge will be there will be lot of ways which you can do it. Okay, so direct measurement is possible. Okay, but it's not really accurate. Bookkeeping estimation, that is which happens when you use your cell phone. Okay, even though sometimes your cell phone might say it has 70% of power, 50% of battery, sometimes it will switch off abruptly and it will say low, no charge. Okay, that is because bookkeeping has diverged, or you can say it has drifted off. Okay, so bookkeeping means it will continuously monitor, okay, the voltage value and the rate of charging of the battery and discharge of the battery, and with that it will calculate at what voltage will be 0% and what voltage it will be 100%, and it will maintain the record of it, so that when a particular voltage has appeared, it will say okay, it's 70% or something. Okay, it is something like lookup table, you can say. Right, and also adaptive systems also come into, right? Let's say right now the power of computation has increased. Okay, people have pulled in the resources, and they are actually they are keeping the power of AI inside an embedded system itself. Okay, so by using the power of AI in embedded systems, now smart batteries are a thing. Okay, they are able to do neural networks based battery state of the charge estimation, right? And sometimes hybrid methods, combination of this adaptive and bookkeeping, are also being done. So the performance wise, if you see, hybrid methods are the best. Okay, adaptive systems are the next, and it goes from the bottom to the top. Okay, and of course, if you want to do this bottom level values also, like adaptive systems, if you want to do, basically it depends on this direct measurement only. Okay, the direct measurement is basically just measurement of voltage and impedance of the battery. Okay, that's what it's going to do. And based on the voltage, current, and temperature monitoring, okay, we are going to either do a bookkeeping or adaptive measurements, etc., etc. So there are several methods as to which how we can employ a state of the charge estimation. Mostly a combination of values will be done. And there's a famous bookkeeping estimation called Coulomb counting. Okay, it'll keep the history of values, and it will try to evaluate what is the current charge available in the battery. And this is state of the health of a battery. Okay, that is I've already explained in words. Okay, here is just a infographic. So it's, if you see the original capacity, okay, if you say it's going to be 100 ampere hour or 100-watt battery, okay, that is the 100%. Then due to the continuous usage, okay, and the internal lithium ion has become useless, part of it has become useless or inactive, it's going to be let's say at over a period of time it's going to become 80%, and the current capacity, total capacity, is going to be 80 watts in that place. So due to the charging and discharging number of cycles, okay, it's going to slowly reduce, okay, the total amount of usage. So if you see the 100%, okay, if you say it's going to be up to 500 cycles, okay, it's going to be nearby 100%. Then slowly, if the number of cycles increase, it's the effectiveness, okay, the total state of the health is going to reduce, and it's going to at 3000 cycles. Okay, these all will be available in the data sheet. It will come to the 20% of the current state. Okay, this is for one of the battery. Okay, but depending on the battery make and the model and the chemistry used inside, okay, it's going to change. And based on the data acquired, these data should be calculated. Okay, that is for generating insights on the battery. So the next time the manufacturer needs to make some changes, okay, he could collect data from the battery, like maximum charge and discharge current, energy delivered since the large cycle, okay, charge. So people will know, okay, this battery is going to go. It's this is a part of preventive maintenance or predictive maintenance. Okay, these data will be collected over a period of time, and we will generate an insight if of any replacement needs to be done or recalling needs to be done. So how many number of cycles have been generated over a period of time. So these data is very paramount for both manufacturer as well as the user. So computing these things previously needed a powerful separate computer, but now the embedded system has become so powerful that calculations can be done, even in powerful processors, okay, capable of doing embedded system. And when we get these data, okay, you can employ production as well, okay, over current, over voltage. Okay, so for this we need to acquire the data of the current, voltage, and temperature. And depending on that, you can make some production like relay based production, okay, solid state relay production, also temperature based production like coolants could be driven, so on and so forth. So nowadays, regenerative braking is also a thing. Like if you want to collect data from this, when you stop, instead of using a normal mechanical based stopping, okay, if you want to do a regenerative braking, so you need to have separate, controller which can act like both, inverter and converter. So motor controller should be modified for that sense. And here we have the topologies of the BMS. Okay, what are the types of BMS available? Okay, you might have three types of BMS here. One is centralized BMS. Okay, let's say we have it could be our BMS could be either employed in a building or inverter, or sometimes it could be done in in your electrical vehicle, or sometimes it could also be done in your electrical train. Okay, because under every train compartments you're going to have batteries. So in that case, you cannot have a centralized BMS. So it's going to be different type. So centralized BMS means it's going to all battery cells, all cells. Okay, it's going to have only one data acquisition and processing unit. Okay, it's going to have these analog signals collected from all the cells. Okay, and the data will be pushed to the one embedded system, one embedded processing system. Okay, our central master unit, CMU or BMU, battery management unit. So it's going to collect the data, it's going to process it, and depending on the the decision made, it's going to say, okay, whether we need to isolate it from the load, or it needs to directly need to do it properly. Okay, and the question of active cell balancing should be employed or not, okay, will be decided by the central master unit. So this will be typically employed in previously it was employed in earlier versions of inverters, or you can also say very earlier versions of electrical vehicle. Okay, but the problem here is you'll be having a lot of wires here. Okay, now large amount of wires will be required to collect the data from each and every system, and everything is centralized. Okay, so if this goes wrong, okay, the total system goes wrong. And distributed BMS, okay, you could say it's going to be a pack of batteries are going to be available. Okay, battery packs are going to be available. Okay, instead of having a single battery, okay, you're going to have mini slaves are going to be available. Right, so each of them is going to have a separate controller, okay, battery management unit, and as a main unit will be separate. Okay, so instead of this doing all the work, okay, mini slaves are going to do the work, and the commands are going to be sent to your main unit. Okay, so instead of this, the data collection to be done by the central management unit. Okay, the data collection tasks will be given by a separate a processor. Okay, but the ultimate decision, of course, will be taken by the master only. right? So the sub units will be connected to your master by using something like some other internal communication. Like for example, here is they are saying RS-485. Okay, if it's an electrical vehicle, sometimes CAN could be used. Okay, it depends on the location. Okay, this example of this is going to be typically an electrical vehicle. Okay, current electrical vehicles is distributed because large number of batteries will be available, and let's for example 268 battery cells will be available inside. Okay, you cannot expect a singular battery management. You need to do cell balancing for all 268 cells, so it's going to be distributed. Okay, modular is also going to be similar. Okay, battery acquisition also going to be separate. Master also might be multiple masters also will be there. Okay, from that multiple masters, you're going to have one more super master. Okay, which is going to collect data, and from the process data it will be sent to the main master, and the communications will be sent to the central unit, right? So this you can say an example. You can say it's going to be a electric train, okay, or locomotive, not locomotive, your trains, okay, where you're going to have batteries over a period of, all the compartments. So in individual compartments, you can have a sub processor, and master processor could be there, at the end, right? So how do we implement these things, and what is the solution which we offer? Okay, so there are plenty of companies offer the solution to battery management system, because multiple companies are present or are working diligently, okay, on their solutions. Okay, because right now the electrical vehicle, or electricity is electrical technologies has improved when we compare to previous past decade. So this our solution, okay, is going to be based on a tool called LabVIEW, and it's sub solution. Sub hardwares. Okay, so why do we need to go for LabVIEW? Okay, why not for other programming tools? So I'm not sure how many of you have already worked on LabVIEW, but if you see, LabVIEW is a tool, a system design tool, which is used by scientists and engineers around the world to do automated tests, automated equipments, and automation for industries. Okay, so these automations range from domains like semiconductor, automotive, heavy transportation, RF. Okay, there are plenty of tools which are domains where it is being used. But what makes it unique is your LabVIEW tool is not text-based programming tool. Number one, it's a full graphical programming tool, meaning you don't need to remember the syntax for each and every code you write. Okay, it's going to be just drag and drop, and basically you'll have for your application you'll have the flow chart. Okay, through ways your program will execute. So LabVIEW is going to be very easy, not only for program software engineers, but also for electrical engineers or EV engineers. But not only that, your LabVIEW program, okay, LabVIEW tool can easily integrate with several hardwares which are capable of implementing several embedded systems. Okay, so there are multiple portfolios, okay, which are available for different types of requirements. For example, if you want to acquire data like voltage, current, strain, sound and vibration, okay, it depends, right? So you're going to have different types of hardwares and portfolios for that. And specifically required for, let's say, if you want to do a battery acquisition, you're going to have separate set of hardwares for that. Okay, and if you want to simulate a battery, okay, as in hardware simulation of a battery. Okay, you want to simulate a battery, right? So you're going to have hardware which will simulate that battery, like it will give out the signals a normal battery would give out. So if you want to do that, you're going to have a separate tool for that, right? So these are being currently done in the industry as we speak. So LabVIEW stands for Laboratory Virtual Instrumentation Engineering Workbench. Okay, it's typically a virtual instrument development tool. Okay, the software, the programs on the LabVIEW will be calling as virtual instrument. Okay, it will be typically used in engineering setup, and all of this will be combined together as a single platform workbench. Okay, without further ado, let me just introduce you how a LabVIEW environment will look like. So this is a LabVIEW window. Okay, currently I'm using LabVIEW 2019. And if I want to start programming it, I'll go to File, New VI. Okay, I can, I can push one. There'll be two windows basically, and one window will be called as a front panel. This is where we develop user interface for our application. Okay, so this place is going to be called as block diagram. This is the place where we write the code for your application. Right. So let's say I want to acquire temperature. Okay, let's say I want to give the temperature value as input for my power supply. Okay, let's say I want to set the voltage as 5 volts. Right, so I need to give some sort of input, no? So that input should be given in the front panel because front panel is the user interface. So if I want to give the inputs to my program, okay, I need to right click, and when I right click, okay, I'm going to get some options related to that. So if you see, front panel is purely only for input and output, and in LabVIEW we call input and output as controls and indicators. Everything is instrumentation terms. Okay, so when you can control something, you call it as control. When it's indicate something, it's going to be called as indicator. So numeric, we're going to have control, numeric control. So you can also have a knob as an input. Okay, virtual instruments means it's going to be virtual, totally virtual in nature. Right. So I can resize it. I can modify it to any way I like. I can have as much as controls and indicators as I need. So this is going to be the volt, power supply. One, and this is going to be the power supply 2. We are going to get the terminals of the front panel object in the block diagram as well, because whatever you do in the front panel, it needs to be processed. Okay, so that processing will be taking place in the block diagram. And if you want to process, okay, you have to write the program, or in LabVIEW we call it a snippet, okay, in the block diagram. So you right click on the block diagram, you get options related to programming. So if you want to process numerical values, you have numeric functions. Okay, if you want to process Boolean function values, you have to have Boolean functions. If you have string, okay, basically it's going to be everything is going to be picturized. Okay, and let's say if I want to, if I want to combine the effectiveness of both power supplies, for example, okay, I'm going to just add both of these values together. I cannot place this in the front panel. I can place it only in the block diagram. So you have it here. Right, so as you can just connect it together, and I'm going to have the values added, and it's going to appear as an indicator. If you want to view the output, I'm going to need an indicator, which could be connected over here. Okay, so if I want to run this program, I can just set some arbitrary values here, and I can run this program at the top, and I'm going to get the output. So here if you see, I did not write any text-based program to add two numbers. Okay, basically we are going to have for different types of approach, we are going to have different tools which are available inside the lab. Okay, so this is just a basic code, but for, let's say, if you want to acquire data from the hardware, you're going to have something called drivers. Okay, like if you go down below, you're going to have measurement drivers, which if you have an appropriate hardware, okay, to acquire the data, you're going to find it here. Okay, let's say if you want to do a data acquisition, you're going to find the data acquisition. If you're going to have oscilloscope based functions, okay, it's going to have an oscilloscope. And power supply, you have a separate power supply as well. And if you want to do you're going to acquire from a CAN modules inside your vehicle, you're going to have something like XNet, which makes implementation of CAN. Okay, for different types of applications, you're going to have different stuff. And third party also, we'll talk about more about that in the upcoming slides. So we already built a simple VI. And basically the coding, the type of coding which we do using LabVIEW, okay, it's going to be just a block of pictures put together. The other important reasons for using LabVIEW is the vast software library which it offers. Okay, so depending on requirements, like for example, today we'll be seeing about let's say if you acquire the data, okay, then next you have to process it. Now you're going to have, depending on the type of stuff you're going to do, you're going to have electrical power processing toolkit. Let's say you want to process data related to machine learning, you have a machine learning toolkit. And if you want to process before you calculate anything, okay, you want to filter out certain data, okay, you need to do signal processing, you're going to have signal processing toolkit. So everything, if you want to implement a control system, okay, you have a control system toolkit. So everything is available here as a separate toolkit. Right? And of course, hardware connectivity. Okay, so NI hardware connectivity is also possible. And of course, third-party hardwares, like for example, NI offers third-party connectivity as well, like for example, Agilent. Okay, these are separate companies. Okay, NI does not only sell, LabVIEW does not only support NI-based tools just because the company which it started. Okay, it will be able to support third-party as well, provided drivers are available. Okay, programming practices, okay, is going to be very simple, okay, for hardwares as well. Okay, so if you see, if you want to, let's say, if you want to program your LabVIEW to acquire data from let's say, from a battery, okay, so it's going to follow a certain sequence, okay, which is not only going to be non-textual basis, we can also follow how the sequence is taking place. Like here, if you see, since it's graphical nature, we can see how this task is going to be presented. Okay, so if you see, it's going to have some APIs, okay, which are going to be forming a straight sequential pattern. Okay, and whatever is going to be done continuously is going to be put inside something called as looping. Okay, so everything is visualizable when it comes to LabVIEW program. And LabVIEW program is just not a simple programming language alone. It is, it's for programming your hardware as well. Okay, to access your hardware. And data acquisition ecosystem is going to be very, very, very large. Okay, depending on the user interface and depending on the amount of work you need to put in. Okay, the different types of portfolios are available. Okay, so it totally depends on the type of questions which you ask to yourself, whether you need it or whether you need not. Okay, so and depending on the number of IOs you need, okay, there are going to be different types of data acquisition available. Okay, so this one is going to be called, it's called as PXI. Okay, basically it has a large number of inputs and outputs. Okay, so basically it could be used in different locations and in a laboratory environment. And this could be used in a rugged environment. If you see, the make of it itself is very rugged in nature. So these and all will be attached to your computer directly, and this is very small. So we actually conducted a battery discharge curve test for one of our client, okay, where we had to run over a period of time, okay, of how the battery is discharging, okay, for in a period of 1 hour for a very simple load, only a resistive load we used, okay, because the requirements have said us to do so, okay. So this is how we observe the the discharge curve, okay. For the one the white color is actually the voltage, okay, and the current is going to be red in color, okay, mostly because it's noise, and some sort of filtering should have been employed, but of course, okay. So it should be totally a straight line here, but if you see the scale, okay, we had to everything has come like this. Okay, this has come over a period of 1 hour approximately. And this is the setup which we used. Okay, it's a PXI based system. Okay, we had a different type of data acquisition hardware, okay, which collected the data from your battery. Okay, let's see how the programming for this would be to have done. Okay, of course we don't have the hardware with us, but just to understand how easy it is to program. This is just a simple program, okay, of addition. But in order to program a hardware, it's easy if you have installed a third-party toolkit. Okay, you can actually print this, and let's say you want to acquire data from data acquisition. You're going to have a separate driver called as DAGMX, okay, to acquire data from hardwares like this. Okay, so first you'll be actually taking the amount of channels you're going to work with. Okay, so here you can specify how much channels to select. You just have to create some sort of um, constant or control, whatever it is. Okay, and using this drop down list, you can specify how many channels it has to acquire and whether it has to acquire analog input, analog output. Okay, and if it's analog output, whether it's going to acquire voltage, temperature, or current. Okay, these many options are there. Then after that, you're going to say these. It's going to send a command to your hardware to start. Right. And next it's going to read because it's input. Okay, then it's going to stop. Then after that, it's going to clear. Right. So similar to generic programming, your programming of hardware is also very simple. Okay. And apart from that, NI does not only say, okay, if you use LabVIEW, you have to use only our hardware. Okay, third-party instrument access is also very possible. Okay, let's say you want to control a power supply, or let's say you want to get the data from a DMM. Okay, provided the DMM has a industry standard protocol, okay, it's going to be accessible in LabVIEW as well. Okay, NI has a instrument driver network. Okay, if you use the standard authorized manufacturer, okay, chances are is going to have LabVIEW driver for the instrument he's using. Or also, normally you can develop your own instrument driver by using something called NI Visa. Okay, NI Visa is a platform where it is going to help you acquire data from GPIB, VXI, RS-2, 485, USB, etc., etc. There are many companies which supports vVisa. So using LabVIEW, you can generate, create programs, okay, and get the data over. Okay. So now, this is fine, sir. Let's say this battery charging and discharging curve, okay, it just acquires voltage and current data. But if you observe very carefully, battery management system is not something, okay, which is going to be, near a computer. Okay. A data acquisition system, okay, involved in a battery management system is something, okay, which should be portable in nature, number one. Okay, it should have a processor on its own, number two, right? So, and it should also be able to make decisions, number three. Okay, so when it has process, of course, it's going to be automatically being done, right? So not only it should have a decision making skills, but it should also be deterministic and reliable, right? So how do we, number one, make reliability, and also let's just say you want to, with data whatever you collected from this battery management system, okay, you need to push it to a cloud as an IoT based solutions for battery management system. Okay, how do I make it all possible? Okay, not only should I focus on battery managing system, okay, I should also focus on transferring this data to some other cloud or some other location. Okay, so basically an IoT device. So basically, everyone knows what IoT is. Okay, IoT is basically anything to any device. Okay, it's going to be connected, and individual device is going to be having its own thinking capability. Okay, thinking as in processing capability, and it should be the individual be able to connect to internet to a centralized server, and derive the command from it and make some action, right? So it should happen from anywhere, any place, any location, and to anybody, right? So this IoT, okay, normally it began as commercial IoT, but things like Industry 4.0 came into picture. Okay, like if we wanted to automate certain things from the from any location. Okay, cyber physical systems came into a unit picture. Okay, so Industry 4.0 has also come into play, right? So things like um, smart factory, smart grid, machine. Okay, now smart batteries, smart electrical vehicles. Okay, smart grid. Those and all came into the picture. Okay, but of course, it all derived from in a commercial consumer standpoint. Okay, but at the end of the day, the data needs to be acquired, it needs to be processed, it needs to be sent to be sent for analysis or deriving in analytics, so that some sort of insights could be generated, and it could be used to for further business or to increase productivity. Okay, for example. So what does NI offer? So NI offers, right now we are speaking about data acquisition, that is acquisition of voltage, current, and temperature. Okay, it's a open connected hardware, and it also offers a hardware which is capable of superior control. Okay, so it's going to have FPGA based or ARM processor based control system designing platform, and it's also going to have a rugged synchronized hardware. Let's say you want to acquire data from a vehicle. Okay, vehicle means it's going to have a lot of vibrations, it's going to have a lot of heat generated, so on and so forth, and reliable measurements in this platform. So what tool does NI offer? Okay, it's not a perfect tool, of course, okay, but it's one of the tools available in NI portfolio. Okay, so processor, FPGA, and AIs, iOS. Okay, all of these things are going to be programmed by one and only software, LabVIEW. Okay, you don't need to learn any other extra program to access your processor or to access your FPGA, and through which we will be accessing analog input, analog output, digital input, digital output, or sometimes custom IOs, specialty IOs. Okay, CAN module, CAN data, or let's say you're going to acquire LIN, FlexRay. Okay, plenty of data is available. Okay, so this is one example of a hardware. Okay, where depending on the type of data you're going to acquire, okay, you're going to have different modules. Okay, and it's going to be synchronized with your internet. So when you connect it to internet, it's going to be IoT cable. So now we are going to demo you how we can acquire data. Let's say we have a battery, okay, for example. Okay, so how to acquire the data and how to push it to cloud. Okay, from there, let's say someone has to do data analytics, they can take over. But right now we are going to see how we can acquire the data from a data acquisition unit. Okay, so we here have a academy version of an embedded system hardware with me. Okay, which has a processor, which has an FPGA, and which has IOs, specific IOs. So here the process is going to be used for math analysis, real-time analytics example. Okay, and it also helps us in connecting it to internet connectivity, right? And let's say you want to do some quick synchronization and other things. Okay, so FPGAs could be used. Okay, but right now we're not going to focus on FPGAs. Okay, because the programming and compiling of FPGA program is going to take significant amount of time. So here we are going to use a hardware called as NI Myrio. Okay, it's a hardware by National Instruments for student learning of how an embedded system is, to learn how an embedded system is implemented using LabVIEW hardware, LabVIEW software, and NI hardware. Okay, so when students know how to program an NI Myrio platform, not only students, okay, even research scholars all around the world have used this NI Myrio to learn and implement state-of-the-art applications depending on their domains. Okay, even BMS was also, we will be focusing on case study at the end. Okay, basically it has several IOs, okay, which are capable of acquiring as well as control. Okay, you have both sides, which we are going to be using. So what we are going to do is we are going to acquire a data from this hardware, okay, which is connected to my computer. Okay, and we are going to push it to cloud by connecting this data to internet. Okay, so this hardware itself has a lot of IOs and also has a Wi-Fi, meaning it can connect to internet directly. Okay, it has 10 analog output, which means it can connect to a range of sensors. It can also connect to 6-channel analog output, which means you can generate some waveforms. Okay, it has an accelerometer inside inbuilt. Okay, it also has integrated Wi-Fi. Okay, so to start programming, we have to use LabVIEW for it. Okay, so to program your hardware, since we are going to deal with separate hardware, we'll be going for a separate project. Okay, and there are plenty of hardware values available. I'm going to use my radio. One second. Yeah. So this Myrio project, and here I'll have a Myrio project separately available, and I'll go next. Okay, if you see through my USB, okay, Myrio is connected. Okay, because it's an another computer, it's going to be having a separate IP address. Okay, because it has its own processor in it, and these are the IOs which are available. Yeah. So if you see, I have a computer, and under my computer I have Myrio. Okay, because I've connected my Myrio hardware, this hardware through USB. Okay. So now I just basically have to create a separate VI. Okay, I'll program this hardware by using the VI only. Okay, using LabVIEW only. This embedded system is going to be programmed directly by using LabVIEW. Okay, I don't need to program embedded C. I don't need to program anything else. Okay, so and of course this MyDay is an embedded hardware. Okay, it's going to have its own operating system inside, and that operating system is real-time operating system because it's a real-time system. Okay, so it's going to have a real-time version of Linux, RT Linux, NI Linux. Okay, which makes it a little bit indeterministic. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just um, acquire some sort of data and push it inside the cloud, right? So how do I do that? First, I need to make sure I connect my MyDay to internet. So to do that, I cannot do it in LabVIEW. Rather, there's one more software tool called as NIMAX, which actually helps me connect my MyDay to an internet service. So here I have a computer, and under my remote systems, which means it's out of my computer but it's connected to my computer, I have my Myrio here. And here you can see specifications related to that. Okay, you're going to have this operating system. But now what is going to be focusing for me is I'll have this network settings. Where I can see, okay, it's going to be saying me whether the Wi-Fi in my MyDay is whether it's going to be a hotspot or it's going to be it's going to be a router, right? So I need to be connectable. It should connect to an existing network. Okay, it has several modes. I can either connect it to connect to a wireless network or create a wireless network. I can do both of that. But now what I'll do is I'll just connect to an existing wireless network. Okay, and make it connect to my cell phone. And I'll give save. And here if you see it's connected to my cell phone. My cell phone will be connected to my internet. Right. So I think that's done. Now, first, what I need to do is I need to make my MyRio acquire certain data. Okay. So here in front of me, I have this, wires available. Okay, I'll just acquire some sort of data, and push it to my cloud. But initially, first I have to check how I can acquire data, right? So for acquisition of my data, okay, I have basically I need to they get data from my IO. Okay, and that is going to be done. If you check here, I have something called MyData toolkit. Okay, and this toolkit has functions which will acquire my data directly and display it here. And if you see, my MyData is capable. It's totally embedded system. Okay, it's not only it has its own IOs here. Okay, unlog input, unlog output. Okay, DIOs. It has PWM generator. Okay, SPI, SPRC. Okay, it's totally embedded system. See. Okay, and all of this programming need not be done by normal programming C, C++, or embedded C. Okay, it's fully graphical. Now, let's say I want to acquire data. Okay, from unlog input, I just have this on login. Okay, I have a lot of channels here. Okay, A, B, and C. Okay, so if you see, this is going to be A and B, right? But this side, okay, it's going to be a little bit, very less voltage range. There is 0 to 5 volts. Okay, but port C, if you say this is port C, okay, port C is going to have plus or minus 10 volts range. Of course, you would say, okay, sir, only 10 plus or minus 10 volts. Of course, any embedded system is going to have very less voltage range only. But if you want to extend that range, you probably have to design something like a signal conditioning system. Okay, or there are several modules available in any ecosystem. Let's say if you want to acquire 300 volts, you have a separate module-based hardware available. Okay, but this hardware can acquire only plus or minus 10 volts. Okay, now I'm just going to acquire data from an existing, a 5-volt power supply. 5-volt power supply here, and display in my, this unit. Let me finish connecting it. Yeah. Now I just need to create an indicator. Okay, I can either create an indicator from here or here, where it is. And I need to do this continuously, so I'll enclose whole of this inside a while loop. Okay, this is how the programming works. And I'll save it as, let's say, acquire and run. So it's going to compile, because this is Windows, and that is, yeah, you see it's going to be working like this. So I connected to a power supply. Okay, it's going to be this much value of value. Okay, Okay, it's basically 5 volts. So initially it had some capacitive effect. So it's going to come on. Okay. Right now, let's say if you want to push this data inside a cloud. Okay, now we have to think about what type of cloud you have to work with. Okay, so this is basically from AIO. I'm just collecting some data and displaying it here. Okay, this is what a data acquisition system does. Okay, this is in voltage. Okay, mind it, this is in voltage. Okay, so if you want to acquire current, possibly you have to design a circuit, okay, which is going to connect. I mean, it's going to acquire the value of current. And it's going to it's going to acquire it here as a voltage, because most of the data system will be having voltage as the reference. So, and here by using the software into convert by using the calculations and get the current value. Temperature also similar. So these data will be collected, okay, and will be represented here. Now let's say you want to push it to cloud. Next question you need to ask is what type of cloud you would be preferring. Okay, so that will be there, no? Yeah. So for that, there are plenty of cloud ecosystems available. Okay, but right now, for simplicity reasons, okay, like if you want to use Amazon, uh, you have that. Okay, Amazon Cloud can be used, or you can use IBM Bluemix. You can use Microsoft Azure. Okay, but right now, for simplicity, we are going to use Google's Firebase. Okay, so Google's Firebase is going to be having this real-time, acquisition. So you could actually, acquire the data and put it directly to cloud. So for that, you just need to create a project. Now I can just enter it as BMS, for example. So let it create, but that is in terms of setup. Okay, but here the data, how the data is going to push from your MyRio to your cloud is also going to be the question, right? So basically, it's going to use some industry standard protocols. Okay, so that industry standard protocols also is available. Okay, if you see, there is something called protocols available in data communication. Okay, protocols, and we have this HTTP client available. Okay, we can use HTTP client to push data from your hardware. This is hardware program. Okay, to your cloud. So I can just open a handle and put the data, and once it is done, I can also close the handle. So for programming here, anything, okay, I just need to don't need to do any complex things. Okay, complex syntaxes. I need to define everything is available as a block. So here I'll be using a tool called as a real-time database. Okay, because the data has to be collected from the hardware and put into the cloud database, right? So that database needs to be created. So I'll set it as US only. And I'll just give it as test mode first. Then here initially it will be false. False means I cannot write any data or read any data from the database. So I'll just change it as true instead. Meaning anyone will be able to publish or access data. So it says someone can steal it for time being. And this is the URL. URL will be sending the data. So here HTTPS BMS unit, okay, Firebase, etc. Okay, and here I need to declare the variable for Firebase. I have to say voltage dot, of course, data. The way the protocol through which the data is going to be carried is different, and the what is it called as format at which the data is going to be carried is going to be different. Okay, here data format. Okay, our data is sent is going to be as a JSON string. Okay, to create a JSON string, we'll be following certain format. Okay, which right now might be confusing to you, but this is how it is done. Okay, the data from the hardware will be available here. We will convert the data from in this format to this format by using certain functions available natively in LabVIEW. And this data format will be converted into something called JSON. And this will be put inside your system. So I don't want this to run very fast. So I'll just say, okay, run every, 500 milliseconds. Right? Okay, probably some sort of hardware issues there. But if you see, I really did not need to have this run in the inside the hardware. Rather, what I can do this is, okay, since instead of using the connected data from the IO, okay, let's say I put a random number, okay, I can push it directly inside the cloud. Okay, so some sort of issues there inside the hardware. Okay, but let's say if you are able to collect the data from the hardware of voltage, okay, I could push the data inside the cloud, okay, provided a software is not corrupted or something. Okay, right now I think some software corruption is there inside the hardware. Okay, but the same data of the 5 volts, okay, could be rather sent inside the inside your hardware directly. So what we need to do is, okay, we need to color the data of voltage, current, and control everything. Okay, and compute certain other data, okay, required for your information. Okay, then we can see it everything clearly here. All right. So I would also like to show you a demo of how the data processed from electrical vehicle, about how data of a battery management system could be processed to get data like state of the charge and state of the health. Okay, so I'll just open that VI. I'm not going to develop it. I'm just going to show a demo. So you'll have data like voltage, current, okay, from which we'll be calculating data like power, energy, and charge. Right, so we have different drive profiles, okay, of different battery consumption. So EV drive profile, which if you run, oh, one second, this should be running in computer. Yeah, you can see it here. So this is when it starts, then slowly from there it will slowly reduce. Okay, data like voltage, current will be got, and power, energy, and charge will be plotted. So for that appropriate toolkit for calculating the charge, okay, something called Coulomb. Okay, if you require, there's a block available. For the power, those everything will be currently available. So here is the final data which is being plotted, the drive profile. Okay, and the total energy consumed slowly at the end, and after the stop it reaches this location. So now you might ask, sir, who has actually done this, apart from us, who has implemented a battery management system, okay, by using this portfolio of hardware and software. Okay, so there's one company called Primus Power. Okay, they have created a battery management system by using not this MyRio hardware. This is educational of the Rio hardware. They have used a hardware called C-Rio, okay, compact Rio. Okay, using which they have developed a portfolio of power electronic system, okay, capable of developing a battery management system, control system for this for their product called Energy Pod. Okay, so there's a zinc bromide battery they created. Okay, for that they used this compact Rio, LabVIEW, and Energy Pod. Okay, so to create a battery management system for this battery system, okay, they used this set of hardware. Okay, so this is the block diagram they used. Okay, they have this BMS available for individual uh, for these battery cells, individual cells. Okay, they have this master BMS, and this is one energy pack. Similarly, they have multiple energy packs available. Everything is connected through a protocol. Okay, and they have this inverter also connected. Okay, there's separate energy management system, and everything which was collected by this this compact Rio is sent through cloud by using this Ethernet. Okay, and the performance tracking, customer and the primers. Okay, whatever they need to monitor, they could be monitoring here. Okay, so the charge, sensors, actuator, charging and discharging control, battery conditioning unit. Okay, everything is available inside. It was created by themselves, and the compact Rio will get data from the signal conditioning board. They will process it, and it will act as a master BMS. And not only did this is industry requirement, and even academicians also have created a battery management system by using the MyRio, the one which we use right now. Okay, for the lithium ion cells. Okay, the reason being, okay, it's they can not only create the program for this battery management system, they can also create a user interface very easily. Okay, and within a very short time. Okay, a university called Mondragon University. It's a university in Spain. Okay, they use LabVIEW, MyRio, and battery BMS IC separately is available. Okay, they made use of it, and they did a hybrid variety of BMS. So basically, they used this SPI-based BMS system. Okay, they monitored individual battery pack, and they connected to MyRio by using SPI. So this is a setup which they used. So by using this BMS for their battery, they were able to develop secondary applications like battery test systems, oven heater, okay, voltage sources, electronic chargers, okay, spectroscopic impedance meters. So by using LabVIEW and its portfolio, scientists and engineers around the world were able to accelerate their application development time to market. Okay, not only in industry, even research was also accelerated to very fast period of time. So with that, we will like to conclude the session. Okay, so this is the time for Q&A. If you don't want the, if you want to note down my, contact, or if you want to ask the question, okay, I'm establishing the contact here. Okay, and I'm now open to questions. Okay, I'll just drop this, my contact in the comment section. Right now, I'm open for the questions. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Hello, sir. This is Abhiram.
Yes, sir.
Sir, actually, I am from mechanical background, and
yes, sir.
The things that you explained today were though nice. I was not able to actually appreciate it for the reason the softwares that you have used and the way you have tried implementing it was, let's say, something which I was not used to. But it was a very good presentation.
Yes.
So my question is that, sir, you have told that BMS plays a very important role, and many companies, startups are trying to do it. But why still people are trying or finding it difficult to get used to, let's say, electric vehicles, and a lot of resistance is there in the market to buy it or, let's say, use it?
Not really. So a lot of companies are actually trying to implement and do BMS even now. The reason being, currently this still is in infancy and research. A lot of researches are going on. Okay, but still people are trying to do it. But anyway, the reason being a technology gap is there, and the volatility of the battery is also currently playing in the picture. Okay, but right now the research is going on, and trying people are again now the next level has also come into picture, such that people are now trying to move away from you can say due to the advancement of technology, people are currently moving from lithium ion based to ultra capacitors. So some group of people, some group of scholars are now questioning, why do we need a BMS when we can do for BMS for lithium ion, when the future is going towards ultra capacitors and super capacitors. Okay, so instead they are trying to adapt for capacitors now, ultra capacitors. So one such group of people are now resisting for that reason. Okay, as far as my observation is going on, but still, yeah.
So people are still waiting for, let's say, defined and more reliable battery source or a capacitor source, so that they can get into an electric vehicle, or they can buy an electric vehicle. That's what you're trying to say.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons. Yes, sir. And right now,
Okay.
previously, one problem was there that electrical vehicles were not very reliable when it comes to coverage of area. That is the amount of kilometers which it can provide efficiently. But I think now that has been squashed by several the amount of case studies which companies like Tesla, companies like Ford. Okay, those are offering. Okay, their electrical vehicles have proved that it can also offer this same amount of the distance which your gasoline vehicles can offer. Okay,
True.
yeah, yes. So that is one thing.
Thank you, sir. It was very good. I had a good idea. I mean, I understood that so much of research is going on in this direction, and so many things are yet to be understood from my side. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much for asking this wonderful question.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone has any questions, please let me know. I'll try to answer it, as knowledge. I mean, as much as I.
Participants, if you have any queries, you can ask the resource person. Participants, if you have any queries, you can ask our resource person, or you can put it in the chat box.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Sir, I just want to know that this national instrument equipment are how much, means if we want to research in our laboratory, so it cost how much?
Of course, ma'am, it depends on your requirements. That is, we would really like to. We are actually helping not only industrial experts. So if you are, if you could actually have a discussion on that separately. Let's say I have provided my, mail ID and my number. So if you could have a separate discussion on what type of research you want to do, and what is the actual, the goal of what you're trying to do. We would be able to, we would be gladly able to suggest you what type of hardware you require and what type of signal conditioning you want to do, etc., etc. So, and depending on the budget, okay, we could also suggest you the hardware, and you can actually do your research using LabVIEW or whatever type of platform you want to work.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So that depends on a lot of variables there. Possibly you are trying to acquire from a BMS which has lot of a number of batteries. In that case, you might also require a PXI based system, or sometimes your requirement is very small. You don't need a lot of IOs. Okay, you just need a very small device. So depending on that, it's going to vary. So if you could tell us what is your exact requirement in a mail, or through a separate phone call, possibly we could discuss about that and we can proceed. So I have also already provided my contact details. So you could actually, if you have any queries or something related to the how you can use LabVIEW or stuff, you could possibly put a mail, possibly. And also if you want to call, okay, call is a little bit tricky because I might be in another project or something. But of course, I mean, suggestion would be to drop a mail. Right? So if that's that, okay, so the conclusion is battery management system even though it's not in its infancy stage, you cannot say it's an infancy stage. Right now, people are moving from hybrid vehicles also. Okay, previously it was combustion engine based system. Next it was hybrid vehicle. Now totally they are moving to full electrical vehicle, and their battery management is very, very important. And also the way your battery management is connecting to the IoT. Okay, that is also very, very important. And how you're going to implement it is what is going to matter. Okay, in many industries, lab use is because engineers do not require programming expertise, so that people will be using several items. Type of materials used in ultra capacitors. To be honest, sir, I am not involved in the region of designing an ultra capacitor. I could say what are the types of hardware which is going to be required, for acquiring data from such ultra capacitors. So I'm not a ultra capacitor designer. I mean, I don't design ultra capacitors, so I may not be able to say what type of materials they use. Thank you.
So there is no further queries. So token of appreciation brings out the excellence with us. In this delightful occasion, on behalf of management of KPR Institute of Engineering and Technology and my own behalf, I express my sincere gratitude to our today's resource person, Mr. R. Rajkumar sir, Senior Application Engineer, VI Solution, Bangalore, who has shared his wide industrial experience related to roles and importance of battery management system and modular battery management system, and how to make an automation, and the importance of the LabVIEW tools, how to make a simulation model, the NI based battery management system, and the roles of IoT and industrial IoT. And he has touched the industry 4.0, and SAR has simulated beautifully with the help of a LabVIEW how to create a battery management system. So thank you so much, sir, for making this session as an interactive, and he has spending a lot of time for this preparation and make this occasion a grateful manner. So I thank all the participants who have participated actively and make this session in a purposeful manner. So thank you so much. The afternoon session will be start by 2 p.m. So kindly plan accordingly. Thank you.
So thank you for having me, sir. Thank you for having me provide my